Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's TALSMART panel. I'm Raj Tomer, and I'm thrilled to introduce John Nollett, a renowned talent acquisition expert, especially known for his impactful work at Oracle. John, if you could share some insights from your career for our viewers, that would be great.
All right, super. Thanks. Glad to be here, by the way. So, briefly, I started out in sales. I worked for a company called General Mills, and I sold. And then I kind of found my way into a company called Motorola in the hardware side, and I started in recruiting. But one of the things I found out was in the sales cycle, recruiting paralleled it, and there was a lot of people that didn't understand that in recruiting. So I took the sales model and put it into recruiting to make my things more efficient. I moved on and I worked at Intel. I have worked at a software electronic design automation company called Cadence Design Systems in the Silicon Valley. And then I moved on to Oracle, and I spent the bulk of my career at Oracle, 20 plus years, and developed and architected both at Cadence and at Oracle their recruiting talent acquisition system from the ground up, and took a totally different, really spin on it and the way we approach the market and handle candidates to increase throughput. And I use really a simple system of four pillars of time, cost, quality, and quantity. And everything in the business process falls in one of those buckets. And you've got to identify what you're doing there. And that creates a value optimization in the center if you do it all right, proportionally at the right times. So that's what I've done. And I built the systems around that. Oracle, I started with one person and ended up with 700 people in 40 different countries. So, and our throughput was 25 to maybe 30,000 a year, typically. That's what we were doing. So I started in the company, it was like 5.6 billion. When I left, it was over 40 billion and 145,000 people. Oh, yeah.
That's super impressive, John. I mean, a career like that, hats off to you.
Thank you.
Um, Moving forward, let's get started with our first question.
Yep.
John, in your extensive experience, what strategies have you found effective for attracting a diverse pool of talent in IT software sales?
Yes. Yeah, and that's probably the most difficult thing to do because the market with individuals, it's kind of hidden and clumped together in a bucket. So you really, I think the big thing that I see that works is more or less, it's more, I would say, promotion of who you are and making you believable in the marketplace. You actually are standing by certain values around diversity and inclusion, right? And you have to promote that and show that it's actually living and breathing within the company. So in order to do that, there's a couple of things that I would say specifically that you could do that, because you can't actually go out and pick people individually out of companies to say this, that, because it's pretty hard. There are leads lists that you can do that. But at the same time, you're not always successful in doing that, right? Versus just going after a general population. So I think promotion's paramount here. So I would say promoting on social media, which would be like a LinkedIn or an X. I would do that. Um, Individuals in your current role. So I'd have like a small video that you could put out on, let's say, an X or LinkedIn that would actually represent someone doing that job in sales, right? And actually their experiences and why they actually are in the organization and why it's advantageous for them to be there and how they feel the culture actually does support their values and individuals' values of diversity. So that's very key. So you can do multiple people like that so people can get a breadth of other individuals within your organization. That's a high attraction strategy. And I know this because through my college recruiting days years and years ago, I always used to say, it was mainly in engineering at the time, that I was actually assigned to create a diverse pool of candidates at the college level, right? So I went out to schools. First of all, I went to colleges a little easier because you could go to colleges that represented a certain group of people. But at the same time, the question was always asked me, especially in the location I was in, as Phoenix, why would I come here? Like, I feel like I'm the only person, right? So that's what I'm talking about, this social media thing. You have to show multiple people that represent a wide, diverse spectrum and constantly have that promoted out there. and it's got to be, the frequency's got to be fairly high, right, to do that. So if you do that, people just become comfortable and kind of associate you with that type of culture. So that's number one. I think you go to diverse job boards. They are limited, but you can actually, post your stuff there. It's very passive, so it's not something that you'd lead with for sure. Again, social media posts. Now you take a broader step back, not just employees talking about their experiences, but individuals talking about the corporate culture and just why they're at that particular company. I think that's really important versus the specific people doing that type of function. Okay. And showing the general workplace initiatives that showcase a commitment to the diverse culture. And I would also post stories like that on the talent acquisition careers page. You should have multiple of those on there as well, at all different segments within the organization, from the executive staff all the way down. And so people can see the breadth of what you have in terms of the talent across the board at different levels in the organization. So I think it's promotion. I think that wins the day. In general, you can purchase leads. There's plenty nowadays, leads lists out there that you can purchase, and you do cold calling, obviously. And yeah, I think you just promotion. That's what it's going to, every time you go to post a job, let's say, or have anything on your ATS site, basically what you would always do is definitely have not just the standard terminology that from a legal standpoint, right, but actually something promoting diversity on each of those. So every time people see stuff, I would do that. I'd actually have, for some of the positions, which is kind of, I haven't seen it done a lot, but I would be posting those small clips of individuals that are diverse right with the job. So you got a video job right there with the diverse person. So I'd have them talking about it so people see it right away. The other thing is you've got to reach out just automatically to people in the competitive ecosystem that you're going for. So it's that group of individuals. So you're bound to find people within that. I would say emailing out of the database. You can do that, and connection through a talent network. A lot of the talent acquisition CRMs kind of thing, you can build your talent network. So I'd constantly be pushing, again, that promotion of diversity out to individuals, and obviously making the request. Like anything, it's kind of giving the offer of who would you know to refer to the organization. So anybody that's actually logged into that system they get something back from you every week or whatever it is, right? And so I would do that. Then obviously referrals within the company through your diverse people that are in the company, and you get referrals there. Blog pages that you can have related to that highlight the culture and reflecting the diversity. And then I would say also what I mentioned earlier is growing your university program. Start growing your own, right? And that's probably one of the most effective ways, because it's a ground up thing. And what happens is those individuals after X number of years become, managers, and then everybody attracts the talent that they themselves are, in a lot of cases. So I think that's extremely important. And I've done that in the past, and it works significantly. And the only other thing I would say is what I'll call a corporate sponsored, invitational based career fair. Okay. So you actually we've done this before. I've done it many times in cities, have specific talent show up on that day. It's not just some broad general thing promoted by someone else. So you actually are going to the building where the company's at, or whatever the case may be. So you set that up. That's what I'd say.
That's a great approach. This is like a holistic set of everything, old, new, whatever works, you put it all together and deliver it to us. At TALSMART, we also emphasize culture and use AI to identify the best channels for reaching diverse talent pools. And that being said, moving on, how do you assess a candidate's tech savviness in IT software sales?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a couple of ways. I mean, and they're pretty standardized. They've been around a while. I think they've improved in quality, and truly evaluating the assessment that they're trying to make actually is what it says it is, right? I think that's where we've moved forward. So there's, sales skills testing and aptitude testing, and a lot of times in sales they're looking for the personality, right, as well. How well can they connect with the customer base. So the other thing is, I would basically, there's a organization out there now, and people are going towards this neuroscience based tools to design the role, because that's important. Here's one of the things that the key in this, in terms of people want to assess talent, but at the end of the day, you're assessing them against what, right? And if you don't have, if it's a square, but you're really assessing a circle, look, that's not going to work, right? And a lot of times I'm making it very simplistic. But at the end of the day, managers do not know. I mean, from the basics, they can articulate some of those things that they felt people would be successful in. But at the end of the day, they don't capture the correct thing. And it's hard to attract the right talent because you're interviewing for the wrong thing at that point in time, even if it's off a little, right? And then they don't know why the hire isn't correct. So if you include neuroscience in there and designing the role, and then actually interviewing for that role through that, you can holistically build a team. And really and again, this is more advanced stuff, cognitive neurology, decision-making science, right? Behavior economics. And what you want to do, and this comes in the diversity side, you want to reduce the hiring bias. So what we're doing is we're using science at that point to actually have a candidate it's self-assessment, right? Because they'll go through a process themselves. And then you can take that and build your interview questions off and interview the individuals. And now you've got a better match. I think that's the most powerful thing you could do. I'm trying to think. And then manager interview training. So in order to use these tools, managers should be, not just this one I mentioned, but any sort of aptitude testing, the managers need to know how to properly interview. And I know I got involved in many at times, and when I found out things that were going on behind closed doors, it was like, oh no, this is not good, right? So, and they don't mean, because that's not the area of expertise. So you've got to create a proficiency in your interviewing teams, that they are proficient and they know it. Kind of at the end of the day, do they know it when they see it? And I think that's really covers the gamut.
Right. I'd like to ask one question, which is not related to our panel, but I'd like to, get some insights and discuss about this topic with you. So I want to know, what do you believe is an opportunity cost for a vacant senior sales roles? Um,
Boy, it's been a while, but I want to say, I got to quote this right.
like assuming an annual quota of $5 million.
Big pardon, I didn't hear you say that.
We can assume an annual quota of $5 million. And yeah, based on that, I'll give you the numbers. Based on
Okay.
that, per day, the daily revenue target, which is $13,698. So with an average time to hire of 60 days, the
Right.
total revenue loss here is around $821,000. And
Okay.
that becomes a lot when you look at, like, go beyond 60 days. If you reach the territories of you know 3 months, 4 months, it just goes skyrocketing high in the sky.
Yeah, and
And
I can't remember that there was a sales training organization that had that number several years ago, and I used to quote it, and I just don't have it off the top of my head. But yeah, it's
yeah,
significant. And by the way, so we talk about an open territory, right? That's one thing.
right.
But here's the second thing. What about having someone in there for a period of time that's a non-producer, that's non-effective?
That is another big one.
It's,
Yes,
this is
definitely.
vast and open territory. So there's a compounding effect here. And
Exactly.
so it is so critical to have the rights. And then also, I'm going to tell you where it comes down to is turnover, right? If you're flipping constantly, first of all, the customer base, you're going to lose the customer base. You can't do that, right? It's just not a good deal. Because you're the 10th person that's called on me, I'm not interested. Just from that alone, even if you have the best of the best solution, they're not interested, because it's just like you don't have your act together, right?
Right.
So that's number one. Number two, attracting new talent,
Right.
especially in the sales community. The word gets out on the street like rapidly. And it's like, I would never go to that territory. Here's why. They've had 5 new people in there in the last X number of, time period, whatever that is, you can't attract the top talent at that either, and that is very difficult. So
Oh,
there's these other effects.
yes, yes. I'd like to mention one more thing here. So we started using AI and data mining technologies to, find the exceptional candidates,
Right,
and we made a target of 2 weeks for here. So when we're comparing it with the traditional recruitment methods,
right,
um, you can expect at least a 15% probability of finding the right candidate within 2 weeks.
right.
And based on our case studies, we came across that AI and data mining enabled searches that we were doing were able to, give us a candidate with a 77% probability of finding the exceptional candidate within 2 weeks. And that
Awesome.
has transformed the complete scenario, the sales scenario for a lot of our clients in the past. Yeah,
That's fantastic. And then on the other hand, because obviously very proficient on the front end, that's obvious. The key is again to have the proficiency of your managers because they've got to take action, right?
right,
And you want to have the best talent, so you give them that. And I always say it's like bananas being peeled; they start to go rotten real fast, right? The candidates,
right,
your interviewing team has to hustle, and
right.
it's got to be a priority. So I think there's those once those are integrated properly, the system works really good.
Definitely, definitely. Um, Practical skills are indeed crucial, actually. So, for our final question, what specific qualities do you believe are crucial when recruiting for IT software sales positions? Drawing from your Oracle experience in the past?
Yep. Okay, that's easy. Um, well, I think first of all, you have to look at have they hit their. Always the first question is, what is your quota? What targets do you hit? How much over? Blah 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 blah. Right. So you want it's all a numbers game at that point, right at the beginning. But I think what's more important is do they have they done it consistently and the context by which they've done it, right? Because there's sales and then there's sales. And what I mean by that, there's some, you've got the new accounts you're trying to crack, right? You've got sometimes large accounts that there's multiple contacts that you're going to have to, and probably a team tends to go in there and do that. But at the end of the day, you're going to have multiple contacts to sell a large solution, right? So the sales cycle time may be a lot longer, right? And then there's the stuff in between, right? And so, but each of those has a process, and you've got to dig deep and understand what was the context by which they sold, right? And if it matches or it's close to what the environment you're putting in, they'll be successful. They'll be confident in doing that. Okay. Um, uh, how do they sell? Are they selling in like a solution value based sale, or are they looking at product price? Because it's always easy to jump to product price, because it's like kind of tangible and it's all I know. But you're going to lose big time. So that's important. And the other thing is looking for how do they handle customers, their customer experience, their contact back and forth, anything within the system. Do they manage that system well within the ecosystem that the customer's like, wow, you're on top of your game. You're looking after me. And I think customer empathy is extremely important as well. If I'm coming to you with a problem, it's not that I don't want to buy or I want to purchase a solution or get a solution for me. And probably you'll pay a premium, by the way, but you've got to be confident in the fact that you're really trying to solve my problem. And I've got a lot of pain. So that person has to understand, and do they understand the friction points with the customer, the pain points with the customer? And overall, how can they provide that solution in a correct manner and articulate it very well? So, and a lot of times you can have them do actual presentations if you need to. How do they handle roadblocks? That's a big thing, not only from the customer, but internally, right? Because sometimes you got to work with internal teams to deliver something to the customer. And how do they get through that? Are they easy to work with? Do they help solution for that? Or can they be kind of a problem in the system as well, right? Even though they might be very aggressive, but it's everything's about relationship, especially nowadays, more than ever. People are connected more than ever. How do you work those relationships properly? Are they proficient? Because there's so many tools. There's tools constantly coming out. Are they proficient, and can they be proficient in their tools, right? Can they use those tools effectively to automate, streamline, and create a better experience in the process for everybody involved, and for themselves, obviously, to be more productive? How fast can they pick that up, right? And I think those are the main points. There's multiple others, but I would say those are the main points that I would look at. And you've got to be, no one's going to purchase anything off you or consider you unless you can build, like and trust, basically, right? They got to like you, and they got to. So are they relatable, and how trustworthy can they be, right? And once you have that, you've got a customer for life, right? And you've got to be a key advisor to them, right? So if you're looking at consultative approach of sale, that's exactly, a key thing to look. Can they sell that way? And again, that gets off the basic tactical product price kind of stuff.
Thank you for those insights, John. I believe it will be very helpful for our viewers today. Now let's delve into any additional inputs you have for our viewers before we wind this session up.
Kind of give me an example. What would be advantageous for the audience?
How do you make sure that you keep on going ahead consistently in your career because you've had an expansive career, and that is something inspirational as well. So yeah, what made sure that you were able to keep going and fighting like a warrior each and every day for so many years? Yeah, that's what we would like to know.
Okay. Well, I think for me, how it happened was, I started in sales. I love sales, so that was very important. I always had this dream of being the senior vice president at the time of medical kind of instrumentation sales. That's what I wanted to do, but that didn't work out at the beginning of my career. But that's fine. So I decided one day, and this is, I think, for anybody in any career, that you have to kind of put a stake in the ground, and you've got to have a passion. And I sat down, literally, and I'll just tell you this, shut my door in my office at the time, and just sat behind my desk and thought, you're going to have to get in the game, and you're going to have to play well when you get out there. And you've got to be the best on the field that you can be. And that's what I thought. So it created this desire and passion. So I wanted to be the best at what I could do. And then I looked to fix problems, go for the solutions. So what isn't working? Where do I just listen to people every day. What is their complaints? So like, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. We could be better if we did this. My own experiential stuff. And that's when I started developing like overall architectural things to make things better, right? And then have this foundation of, reducing the friction. And a lot of times in talent acquisition, you're a cost center, right? And you have to prove value. So there's many choices out there in this field, right? And you've got to prove, am I the best choice? But you've got to have quantity to back it up. And that was one of the things that I'm a mathematics type person. So quantifying things and simplistically for individuals listening to the story that you've got. And so I just did that and continued to repeat that. And as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, people have to be able to grasp it and then scale it as well. And as we know in the world of recruiting or talent acquisition now, as we call it, time is everything. It's essential. And you have to, and you can't overwhelm people. And I think that's one of the key also that I learned was try to minimize the amount of presentations you have to people. In other words, 2 people, 3 people when you present to manager. They don't have time. And they all better be, and I think this is where you set high expectations, goals for yourself. If a person interviews, you want them to come back and say, I interviewed 3 of your people. You know what? I want to hire all 3. But I only have 1 opening. Now you put me in a bad situation. That's where you want to be. I've had that before many times, right? Our teams, right? Not me, but the teams that did it. That's where you want to be. And when you do that, word gets out. And be quite honest with you, in Oracle when I started, they didn't have recruiting at all. And they're like, I use this person here, this agency here, help me understand why I should use you. And I said, look, you only use me because of value, right? But what I did was created customer success stories and then had that referred within the organization. And people started calling me and saying, well, how do I get some of this? How do I use you? Like, I heard these great stories. Yeah, that's how you do it. So there was none of this knock on the door and push something down someone's throat. And the other thing is you got to be flexible. You can't say you're the only game in town. And if you're not meeting the expectations and you quantify these things, right, then it has to be done some other way, in a better way, faster, better, cheaper, right? And that's what all people want. So, I think that's my learnings, and it's served very well, and I've always had a happy customer base from that, and been welcome at any point in time. So yeah.
All right, then that's a wrap on our TALSMART panel today. A huge shout out to John Knowledge for dropping some serious knowledge, especially those nuggets from his Oracle days. Your insights, gold. To audience, yeah, and everybody else who might want to benefit from these videos. So keep your eyes peeled for more panels like this, where we deep dive and get real about tech talent. Thanks for hanging with us. Stay savvy and catch you all next time.